Before we dwell into Italian opera, I will attempt to give a very concise history of the Italian peninsula, the place where opera originated, as it is important to know the history and the background of something whenever one truly wishes to understand it. Firstly, the first civilization in Italy was the Etruscan, which arose about 800 BC in central Italy. The Etruscans built cities on a grid pattern. Some of these cities still exist, including Arezzo, Chiusi, Cortona, Perugia, and Cerveteri. Later on in 500 BC, Rome would gain notoriety for its system of government. They were the first to use the collective system of government called a republic. This system would be copied by many countries for centuries to come. In 27 BC, the destabilization of this system would give rise to one of the largest empires the world has ever seen. The Roman Empire, which lasted from 27 BC to 476 AD, was responsible for the creation of innovative technologies, art, music, and religion. The influence of Rome was so large that when it fell, it would start a period known to historians as the Dark Ages, which was given its name due to it being a period of economic, intellectual, and cultural decline in Europe. It would take around 900 years for this period to cease and be supplanted by the Renaissance. The Renaissance was a fervent period of European cultural, artistic, political, and economic rebirth. This again would start in the Italian peninsula, in the city state of Florence. Then there was the infamous Benito Mussolini, who in 1919 would coin the term of fascism to describe his iniquitous political system. As we can see, Italy has been carved into history for many things, but today we will focus on its magnificent opera. Opera is a unique art form combining singing, acting, language skills, and voice manipulation in ways no other singer can. The performances bring people from all walks of life together. Even when you don't understand the language, the singer tells the story beautifully. The fact that you feel it means you already know what each character is conveying. The history of opera began in Florence in 1597 with the premiere of Jacopo Peri's Daphne. Peri called his retelling of the mythological story of Daphne and Apollo an opera, which literally means piece of work. The next transformative event in the history of opera occurred in Italy as well, this time in Venice instead of Florence. That event was the 1637 opening of the first public opera house, the Teatro San Cassiano. The theater could only seat around 400 audience members, but it allowed for a greater cross section of the population to experience opera. Before the Teatro San Cassiano, opera was only for royalty and intellectuals celebrating special events. But with Teatro di San Cassiano opening, Italian opera became available to anyone who could pay, with Venice joining Florence as a center for opera. In the Baroque era, from 1600s to 1750, the influence of Italian opera began to spread even wider. Opera companies toured across Italy, and by 1650, Italian operas were being performed in France, German speaking lands, and other European cultural centers. Naples, Rome, and Venice were an incomparable network of production and request of music, a real musical industry of the Baroque era. That's the reason for generating and attracting the best talents of the time, often contended by the most important courts of Europe. The Italian style influenced strongly many important foreign composers, particularly Germans like Handel, who lived and wrote Italian opera in England, Hassler, etc. Mozart and Gluck were famous composers of opera in the Italian style. The first collaborated strictly with two important Italian poets, Pietro Metastasio and Lorenzo da Ponte. The great season of Italian opera reaches its height with Giuseppe Verdi 1813 to 1901, who dominates the scene for most half a century, unique and unreachable. The founding principles of Verdi's theater are the realistic depiction of man and his passions and brevity. What counts is the situation, the immediate dramatic effect produced by music. The heart of the action must be reached soon, without too much lost in artificial versifications. Moving on to contemporary opera, it is still highly relevant today with large audiences attending them. New up and coming composers and singers who want to prove themselves are already leaving a mark, such as Philip Glass, Missy Mazzoli, and Jennifer Higdon. With all of this in mind, it is safe to say that opera is here to stay.